Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us for this MAP International and Saving Lives with Medicine program. I'm Beverly Trainer. I'm the District 6920 Chair of the Saving Lives with Medicine program, and I'm here with Steve Sterling, CEO of MAP International, Jason Elliott, who is the Director of Disaster Relief and Project Management, and Beth Arrow Brown, who is our Quality Control Officer. For those of you who are not familiar with MAP International, MAP has served millions of people all over the world who are critically in need of hygiene kits and medicines. They have donated over $600 million worth of products overseas and in the United States to treat some of the poorest people, those who are in disaster areas. And I'd like to start this presentation with Steve Sterling. He has a very compelling story of his life. And so Steve, if you'll tell us a little bit about your beginnings and how you came to MAP.
Well, thank you, Beverly, very much for your leadership and pulling this program together. Greetings to my fellow Rotarians. I'm just glad to be part of this wonderful group of 1.2 million men and women around the world that really focuses on service above self. And thank you, Beverly, for your kind introduction. And so if I could just take a few minutes and talk about how I believe God has really prepared me for this role at MAP. And just as a backdrop to my story, when I was 1 year old, I was born in South Korea. And when I was 1 year old, I ended up getting polio. And if you can go to the slide, please, Amanda. And so I was born in South Korea. And so my father had gone to a funeral of a friend whose child had passed away. And that's my father on the right side. And that's on the left side, it's myself. And just goes to show all babies when they're young, they're cute. So that was me when I was 1 year old. And so when I was one, I ended up getting polio. My father did not realize that when he went to the funeral of his friend whose child had passed away, the child had passed away from polio. And so he felt so bad about passing on the polio virus to me. And so back then in Korea, the polio vaccine was not available. And unfortunately, I did not get the vaccine. But that did not define who I am as to where I started in life. So when I was 5 years old, my father took me to the front of an orphanage and he abandoned me because he was afraid that if I had parents, that maybe they would not take me in. So go to the next slide, please. So this is a picture on the far left of me when I was in the orphanage. And by then I had received my first pair of crutches. And by the way, many of the Rotarians will know about people around the world who've had polio. And I'm so grateful for the Rotarians around the world to really work toward eradicating polio. And as you know, we're this close to eradicating polio around the world. And so, so I lived in the orphanage for 5 years. And the picture on the right, that was my sponsor. Her name is Beulah Strumchek. And many years later, I had the opportunity to meet her when I worked for World Vision in Seattle, Washington. And she's gone home with the Lord now, but I met her in Walla Walla, Washington. And she was so happy that this little boy she had sponsored came to the United States and was working for World Vision. And I was so touched by her generosity because she told me that her husband worked for the post office and they had 3 children. And her husband told her, I don't have $10 a month for the handicapped kid in Korea. So if you want to sponsor him, you have to raise your own money. So she told me that she used to clean houses every week so she could send me $10 a month so that I could then get some crutches and later on leg braces, and then I could go to school. Before I could walk, I could not go to school. And so I was so grateful for her sacrificial giving many, many years ago so that I can get the crutches and leg braces, then I could go to school. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is a picture of my adopted family. And my parents adopted 6 children, 4 from Korea, and then 2 from California, and then God bless them, one of their own. And the little circle around that's my biological sister. And no, that's not a halo, that's my biological sister. And so when my parents went to Korea to pick up the other 2 children, siblings that are not related to me, they were passing that candy to the kids who were left behind. And so Mary Ellen, my biological sister, she took the candy, she ran off. So my parents asked the orphanage workers, doesn't she like us? Why did she run off that way? And the orphanage workers told them that she has a handicapped brother and she's taking him candy first. So I had her trained really well. So, but her kindness touched their heart so much. I said, oh, we need to meet her brother. So they went to the back of the orphanage where the handicapped kids were kept. And so when they saw me sitting on the floor playing around with a big smile on my face, they said, oh, we need to figure out how to adopt them as well. Back then, they had the immigration law. They could only adopt 2 children from a developing country. So it took them 2 years writing letters to get us added to a rider on the bill. And in 1966, when President Johnson signed the bill with the rider of our immigration coming over, that's when we come over in 1968. I'm sure it's 66 to Alaska. So next slide. So I'm going to jump forward to, because through adoption, I was able to go to the best university in the country. And the far left, that's a picture of me at graduating from Cornell University, and then to the right from Northwestern University with my MBA in marketing and finance. And that's a picture of me when I was 26 with my bride, Suki, and my aunt and uncle in Evanston, Illinois. So next slide, please. And so this is my family from a couple of years ago. I have a son who's an immigration attorney in San Antonio. A daughter, Rachel, is a senior copywriter in LA. My wife and I have the fortunate opportunity to be working at MAP. So next slide, I'm going to jump forward to about over 8 years ago. I get a call from a recruiter, and the recruiter says, I've got a really good opportunity for you to be the CEO of MAP. And I jokingly said, MAP, who uses MAP? Everybody has GPS. And she said, no, MAP stands for Medical Assistance Program. And we think with your background that you will be perfect, because I had worked for pharmaceutical businesses and corporations for half my career. And then at the time I was a COO for another nonprofit child fund in Richmond, Virginia. So my initial response was, no, thanks, I'm not interested, because I had given a commitment to the CEO of the other nonprofit I was a COO at, I'd be there at least 3 to 5 years, and I was just there 2.5 years. So I came home and I talked to Suki about it, and I told her what happened. She said, you say the MAP is a Christian organization? And I said, yes. She said, well, don't you think we should pray about it first? And she's right 99% of the time. So we prayed about it. And after I looked at MAP, it was such a organization not too many people have heard about, but it's doing some amazing work. And so I'd like to talk to you about what MAP does. And what I was most impressed about were the people. And because of what MAP does in getting Gift in Kind donated, we're able to help millions and millions of people, providing $100 million, over $600 million of Gift in Kind to people in need around the world. So now I'd like to kind of talk about MAP International. And so next slide, please. So MAP is rated by Charity Navigator. So if you look at the top 5, and by the way, Rotary Foundation of International is number 5, and MAP, we're ranked as number 1, and based on all the different metrics that go into it. And this is because most of our, what we send out is gift in kind of product, pharmaceutical product. So go to the next slide, please. So why do we do what we do? So we say the medicines for the world. And Matthew 25:36 is really important. When I was sick, you looked after me. And so MAP is a Christian organization, but we help all people, regardless of ethnicity, gender, or religious belief. And so we help everyone that needs help. This is how we do the work. We're located in Brunswick, Georgia, that is south of Savannah and Charleston. And most of the medicines by volume get shipped out of Savannah, then out of Charleston. So next slide. So the way we work is that we have pharmaceutical companies on the left that will donate medicines that are getting close to their expiration date. They're not expired, but they're getting close. So they may offer it with roughly 8 months expiration date remaining. And then we work with the partners on the right with people or boots on the ground and to distribute these medicines to clinics and hospitals all around the world. Next slide. And what do we do? And so the World Health Organization estimates that there are 2 billion people around the world that do not have access to life-saving medicines. Simple medicines like antibiotics, hypertension medicines, cardiovascular medicine, diabetes medicines. And so these are medicines you and I take for granted. And so this is what we provide through the gift in kind donations that pharma companies make and through our partners. We also do disaster response relief, which Jason will talk about in a little bit. Next slide. The impact that we make around the world, and this is through our partners and with including Rotary and many other partners, we help more than 26 million people last year, and we served people in nearly 80 countries. And half of those countries are served through our partners, where we ship the medicines in containers through the freights, the flight liners, and then through rest of them through mission trips that are people that go on through churches, surgical teams that will go on these mission trips. They'll take our medicine with them. Next slide. And one of the joys that I had was to actually travel to India in 2017 with the Rotary International to help vaccinate the children. It was such a memorable trip for me because I met many mothers with little children who were getting vaccinated, and the joy that they saw in the children and the faces of children, but also themselves, because they knew that their children would not be inflicted with polio, because there's so many children in India that have had polio and they see the aftermath. And on the far left, there was actually a hospital that the Rotary International helped support to do some orthopedic surgery there. And so it was just a wonderful trip, and I'm so thankful that I am part of the Rotary International. Next slide. Another thing we are very proud of, and it's a privilege, that we have the Bill Foege Global Health Awards, and we had the very first inaugural event in 2017, and we were honored to give this award to the Rotary International, that's President John Germ in 2017, and also the other awardee was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, so the work against eradicating polio. And so what a joy it was to be together at the Delta Flight Museum in 2017. The next slide. And this is another event in 2018 where we had the privilege of giving the award to President Jimmy Carter and Mrs. Rosalind Carter for their work in so many areas through the Carter Center, and also Ambassador Andrew Young. And we have the corporate sponsor, UPS and Delta. We're such great corporate sponsors of MAP, and as we do this, especially around the relief area that's going on right now. So next slide. And so this is one of the joys that we had. We had a surprise visit by President Jimmy Carter and Mrs. Carter in 2018. And so it was just such a joy. And they were really surprised that MAP was located right in Brunswick, Georgia. So great things come out of small places like Brunswick. And so I'm such a privilege that I have the opportunity to work with MAP staff and with the Rotary in serving many millions of people around the world. So with that, I will turn it over to Jason Elliott, who will talk about disaster response and about domestic meds program. Jason?
All right, thank you, sir, for that introduction. And yes, so MAP is active in disasters. It's a part of what we do and a very significant part of what we do. And as we see on this slide, some examples in recent years of responses, not just natural disasters, but crises as well, often refugee crises such as the Syrian crisis, Venezuelan crisis, which actually drove Venezuelans into many surrounding countries. So we partnered with the U.S.A. Comfort as they traveled around and provided support to countries in which their healthcare infrastructure had been severely depleted. Hurricane Dorian and of course COVID-19. Currently, as we're filming this, actually Ukraine, we're in the midst of a response to support Ukrainians that have been impacted by the invasion over there in multiple countries. Next slide. And just a kind of a recap of our most recent fiscal year, FY21, some more examples of the types of responses that we had. Again, Hurricane Eta, the Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict, and the border crisis, the St. Vincent volcanoes, India, as the COVID outbreak over there was pretty significant. We had a pretty strong response there. Haiti earthquakes, and again, some other responses there, but you'll see the shipped 46,380 DHKs, that's disaster health kits, which we have a DHK program, which each of those kits contain personal hygiene and first aid products. That's one element of our disaster relief program, which enables us to respond quickly when large populations have been displaced, on a moment's notice sometimes. In addition to that, we ship large amounts of PPE or personal protective equipment, as was the case with our COVID-19 response. We shipped 28 million different items so far of PPE, over 90,000 bottles of disinfectant spray through a generous donor that provided that, and then personal care wipes and more than 100 oxygenators to people in need in various countries as well. Beyond that, we keep on hand IEHKs, which are interagency emergency help kits. Each kit has enough medicines and supplies to meet the basic health needs of 10,000 people for 90 days. So we keep those here in our foreign trade zone in Brunswick, Georgia, and ship them out rapidly following disasters. Beyond that, we keep a large amount of water filters on hand, and clean water, access to clean water is often an issue following major disasters. And of course, we have our regular inventory of our full distribution center here, which we'll be looking at actually in just a moment, that we make available during relief operations. So that is it on that presentation. And now I'm going to, Beverly, if you don't mind, I'm going to transition into a quick video about, all right, and we're just going to show you our quick video of our distribution center. A little tour here.
Critically needed medicines are getting to those who don't have access. MAP International's Global Distribution Center was made for this. Today, MAP's Global Distribution Center in Brunswick, Georgia, is the hub for carrying out our mission. Our modern, climate-controlled, environmentally responsible 40,000 square foot facility supports a capacity of over 3,000 pallet spaces across 6 tiers. When our relief partners see MAP's distinctive blue wrap, they know they are receiving the highest quality, World Health Organization approved medicines and health supplies to serve a world in need. By focusing on our unique approach to getting medicines and health supplies to where they're needed most, MAP International is having an amazing global impact.
Thank you, Jason. And so now we're going to transition and talk specifically about the Saving Lives with Medicine program. And I love this program so much because it really embodies the spirit of Rotary, what we as an organization do every day all around the world, how we can make a difference in saving lives in our own backyard. You know, this was the idea of one man, one individual who built a team of collaborators, people who had the knowledge and experience necessary to make this program work. And they designed this program, and you know, it was difficult to design. There are very specific analytics that have to be done and accounted for. We're talking about medicines, we're talking about people living or dying. And they formed a team, ran a test pilot program, and we're going to talk today about how successful this program has been. And so, Jason, back to you. Tell us how the program started, what the program does, and where we are today.
All right, so Beverly, thank you for that. So yes, as you were saying, in 2017, Dr. Hamza Thoda, District Governor of District 6920, approached our President, Steve Sterling, and about the problem of, you know, MAP's been doing a great job globally and all these things around the world that Steve just talked about in the video we just showed. But there's a problem here in our own backyard, in our own communities. What about those who are not getting these medicines that are here in our own communities? We have these free and charitable clinics, you know, around even our district here across southern Georgia that have the ability to dispense the medications, but aren't receiving the medications. You know, so we partnered with them. We conducted a study to say, what gaps are there that MAP and Rotary could come together and help fill those gaps. And the gap that was identified was the consistent provision of chronic disease medication. So, when you're on something like, being prescribed something like hypertension medication, asthma medication, diabetes medication, cholesterol medication, these are things that you need a consistent supply of every month. And if you're relying on it to get donated or to get it free, and the clinic is not consistently getting it, after you get it for a month and you don't get it for another month, you're back where you started. And so after identifying that gap, then we come together with the team that was assembled by Hamza Thoda, with Dr. Miriam Rittmeyer, our in-house Rotary subject matter expert from the Skidaway Island Rotary Club, Candace Rowell, our in-house, our MPH, and Steve, and they all come together and built this team and identified a way that we could test this out to see how we could supply medicines to the patients of local free and charitable clinics and focus on those chronic diseases, and do so in a way that was sustainable and that could be supported by the Rotary District and the Rotary Clubs, with MAP providing the medicines to the clinics for free so that they could be provided to the patients at no cost to them. So since launching that in 2017 with, it was October of 2017 around there, with 2 test clinics, the program's grown now. We've had 8 clinics across the district involved. It's actually involved around 28 clubs that have been a part of this throughout the process at various times. And overall, we took this model after seeing all the success, and I'm going to share a little bit more about the success and the impact of it in a moment. But after seeing the success of it, we said we can roll this out beyond just Rotary. Rotary helped create this model, and we've proven it to be successful. How can we implement this with beyond the district, beyond Georgia, with other foundations, churches, corporations, individuals? And in doing that, we've grown the program now, over 4 years into it, over 32 clinics across 4 states. And that is, and we attribute that back to Hamza approaching Steve, launching this program, because we're 68 years old. In the first 6 decades, this is not something we'd ever placed a lot of focus on, all that. And because of Rotary's involvement and their expertise, we were able to place the assets behind it and the expertise, and learn, hey, we can do this. We can have an impact here in our own community and be consistent with it. So across the district, we've involved clubs across the Valdosta area, Brunswick and the Golden Isles, St. Simons and Jekyll Island. I've heard multiple times that it's not very often that all 4 clubs in the Golden Isles come together on a project like this, and have actually been that involved in it together. So that's exciting. The Vidalia area, the Jessup area and Hinesville area, Augusta. And then last year we brought on multiple clubs in the Savannah area to partner with 2 clinics. And then beyond that, Dublin, we brought on a clinic there in Dublin, and the Dublin area club is supporting that. This year, we've already launched, actually this week, I think was the official ribbon cutting ceremony, but we launched a partnership with Good Health Ministries in Claxton, which we're in conversation with clubs over there now who all is going to be supporting that. And then another great thing about that is Rotary approached us about that clinic. So as we talk more later about how Rotary can help support this, it's not always about funding, but sometimes it's about networking and actually bringing people to the table and identifying that need, because Rotarians know best the needs in their community, and they know the movers and the shakers, as they say, the ones that connect it and actually connect the dots for us and bring us all together and get us at the table to have these discussions. Here's just some photos of us at random launches. Up the top left corner there, I believe that was a diversity clinic in Hinesville. And then on the bottom left corner, that was a CCHS, or Coastal Community Health Services. That's a clinic here in Brunswick supporting Glenn County, McIntosh County, getting ready to open up another clinic here in our own community, and yeah, in Townsend as well. So they're expanding, and Rotary and MAP is a part of that. And we're actually doing a great thing here. And I say in our own community, not just in the district. This is here in Brunswick where MAP is. So it excites us. It's right down the street, and it's great to not just be shipping them out physically, but it's one of the clinics that actually comes by and picks up orders. Beth gets to go over there and meet with them and see that in person, that impact. And that has a huge impact on us. It gets us excited. So. To date, after 4 years, through this program, we have reached over 5,000, over 5,700 patients, 5,700 individual patients that have been served, and that's over 11,000 treatments. And again, that's just the clinics that Rotary are supporting. So we track statistics from the clinics. They provide quarterly reports to us so that we can see the impact that is actually being had by the medications. And there's a slide coming up about this, but the data is based on the National Committee for Quality Assurance and its national standards that we track from the beginning of the program enrollment. And they report this to us quarterly, letting us know no demographics or identifiers of the patients, but we saw this many patients that were suffering from this. This many of them were prescribed medications from this, and these are the results. And doing that, you see hypertension, 50% of the patients in the first 3 years they showed improvements. 61% of the diabetic patients demonstrated improvements, 63% of the cholesterol patients, and 82% of the asthma patients. And I've shared with you before how when I first saw these numbers, I was a little hesitant to get up and share them in big crowds because the numbers were bigger than what we expected, you know. And so we started talking to the clinic saying, hey, is this right? Is this correct? And what we found was that these were patients that were not getting these medications consistently before. They were having to choose. Do I go down, even if it's a $2 or $3 program at a local grocery store like Publix, that $2 or $3 might be the difference between lunch and their medication. That $2 or $3 might be multiplied times 4 because they actually have 4 medications they have to get. That local grocery store might be 15 minutes down the road because we're serving rural areas as well. Or even here in Brunswick, which is very developed. One of the clinics we were serving, the next closest pharmacy was over a mile up the road. If you're walking already to that clinic and you're already suffering from hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, and asthma, now you're having to figure out how to get from point B to point C to get that medication and get back home. So this has enabled the clinics to actually dispense the medications from the clinics to the patients while they're there, regardless of the patient's financial situation. They're able to give them that medication for free. And so in talking to the clinics, that's what we found, that they were not getting their medications consistently before. And now, if someone misses their hypertension medication for a month, or they don't miss it for a month because they have it, so they're not ending up in the ER for being non-compliant. That's another kind of a hidden bonus of this. It's keeping the people, the beneficiaries, out of the emergency rooms. It's enabling them to hold down their jobs, to support their families. So again, going all the way back to Rotary's involvement at the very beginning, it makes a huge impact beyond just the provision of the medication into their own communities. As I mentioned about the data here on the NCQA standards, this right here was developed using these standards. Again, Dr. Miriam Rittmeyer and Candace Rao are in-house experts. They come up with these using the NCQA standards, looking at hypertension. So the number of patients with 2 data points, 2 visits with blood pressure measured during that reporting period. So if we're in that quarterly reporting period, they're looking at that patient that received it, making sure they had 2 different visits in there to actually track the data. And then the number of patients based on that were improved. And then using the improvement of blood pressure less than 140/90. And we have similar indicators in the diabetes, cholesterol, and asthma, as you can see there on screen. And then this data is reported back to us each quarter. And then we provide the quarterly report to Rotary and to share with the district and the clubs to see kind of the numbers behind what they're doing there. This is one that gets me excited, and it gets a lot of Rotarians excited here. Over the past 4 years, from September of 2021 to October of 21, Rotary has provided around $82,000 of support to this program. MAP has turned that in about $650,000 of medicines and supplies. So that's both donated and purchased product from MAP. The donated product is the obvious, and that's the core of our mission, 99.9% of what we do. So as medications are donated, we can support the program with that. We do. If they're not donated, we're able to turn around and purchase them. We're licensed as a wholesaler distributor. Although we're a nonprofit charitable organization, in order to distribute medication, we're required to be a licensed wholesaler distributor. The benefit of that for this program is we can purchase medications at wholesale pricing and then use those funds, buy them at wholesale pricing, and then pass it along. So that's how we're able to turn the $82,000 into $650,000. It is another great part of this, and Beth saw this firsthand a lot throughout the peaks of COVID. When we have products like masks and nitrile gloves and infrared thermometers and things like that these clinics were actually having to buy, and we're finding out they're buying them. We're like, no, we're getting these donated, or we're able to buy them at wholesale pricing. Let us do that and use the budgets that we have to support this and provide it to you for free. And then that was extending their budgets. And a lot of them had to change the way they operated throughout COVID, whether it was limited hours or limited staff or however, so any support that can be provided to them was much appreciated. And this program was definitely a huge part of that support. So some patient and clinic stories we always like to share. So this is a patient from one of the actual clinic workers. A statement from one of the clinic workers saying this program has been invaluable to our patients. I love helping people, and that look in people's eyes when you hand them the medication that they know they need. And one of them said, I rest easier at night knowing our patients have access to the medications they need to keep them out of the hospital. One of the patients I mentioned earlier about the story about getting to the pharmacy, I couldn't afford gas money to get to the pharmacy. I thank you enough for providing me with this medication. This is a blessing. Just an example there of a patient who, again, they made it from their home to the clinic. Now they have to get to the next pharmacy, which sometimes is several miles away. So the financial support, and this was just agreed upon from the beginning, and when they first rolled this out, was that the clubs would provide 60% of the funding for the program for their local clinics. And then the district picked up the additional 40% of that. The monthly club cost has ranged from $16 to $150 based on the number of clubs and the number of patients served. And what that really means is that I'll say the number of clubs, as you saw earlier when I was showing the different clubs supporting the clinics. Some of those are 1-for-1, maybe someone like Dublin where you have one club there by one clinic. Whereas in our area, you have Brunswick, Golden Isles, St. Simons, Jekyll Island, all communities represented, which are being served by that clinic. So they're able to split that cost out. On the number of patients, budgets are established from the beginning based on, is this 250 patients or is this several thousand patients? And then we establish a budget and agree upon that with Rotary. And then the last is the most important contact information, your contact details. So that's the, so yes, we have our details on here. Beverly Trainer is, as mentioned earlier, the Rotary main contact, the chair of this program now for the next 3 years, I believe. So stuck with us for a while. So before you, Tom Woodbury was a huge asset in this program as well, and helped us learn a lot in navigating this. And then, of course, my information's on there, Jason Elliott and Beth Arrow Brown, who'll be speaking here in a few minutes. But Beth, not only is she the quality control officer, but she's the one actually responsible for managing relationships each month with the 32 clinics that I mentioned earlier. So part of that is all the Rotary clinics there. So
Jason, I have one question for you.
yes.
So if MAP is 68 years old and I'm 68 years old, when is the party? You have never answered that question for me.
That's whenever you want. We'll throw you one when we're up here. So,
All right, Beth.
every Tuesday at lunchtime.
Oh, there you go.
Rotary Club meeting. It's always a party. So.
So Beth, how do we identify appropriate clinics and get them up and running and started in the program?
So we identify the free and charitable clinics in underserved communities. And it could be federally qualified health centers as well. Right when we first started, with Saving Lives with Medicine program, we only started with about a couple of 2 clinics, and we are now at 8 clinics with the SL, Saving Lives with Medicine program. And throughout the domestic medicine program, we have 32 clinics, like what Jason mentioned. So we identify those clinics and we look into their program, and we see, since our program focuses on the 4 chronic medication diseases, which is cholesterol, hypertension, asthma, and diabetes, we want to see that, those are the same targets of those clinics. And so we offer them partnership, and we start that with, making, setting up a meeting with them first. And it could, lately it has been virtual meetings, but we see that, we find out how many patients they have in their clinic, how many patients they are serving. And we show them what formulary we have. We have right now more than 100 in our domestic medicine formulary. And, plus the medical supplies, both GIK, gift in kind, and purchase products. So we introduced to them the domestic medicine program. We introduced to them MAP International per se, and then we learn about their clinic, and we see where we can work together so we can serve the communities. And all that they need is, aside from, of course, the agreement with MAP International, is the United States medical practitioner who can sign for the full year. What my role includes making sure that they are compliant. We make sure that all the requirements for the program is fulfilled, and I check on that as a quality control officer as well. And monthly, I make sure that I communicate with them on what they need. I only ship to them. MAP International only ships to them just what they need, no more than what they need. And a lot of times there are gift in kind products that are available from our pharma donors as well, that we offer to them whenever they need them. And just recently, that was just last month when we introduced insulin, which is very well needed, yes. And, we were able to work out the logistics involved, but successful right now. Several of the clinics are really in need and have been receiving them. And absolutely. And also blood pressure, the what do you call it? The blood pressure monitors that they actually send out to the patients, and even supplies that they use every day, like exam table papers and sheet drapes, gloves and masks, and those are very well needed by those communities. And and it's less money that they have to spend in their clinics.
That's
Right.
wonderful, Beth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So the big question in the room is, how can our Rotary clubs get involved with the program? What are the different avenues that they have?
Yes, thank you. So a couple of different ways. First of all, like I said, networking is a big part of this. Oftentimes we'll identify clinics that are in a community that we say, hey, we didn't know. Maybe we find them through the Georgia Free and Charitable Care Network, or maybe we find them just by word of mouth, whatever. But so we didn't know this community had a free and charitable clinic. There's a need there. Let's see how we can support it. Sometimes trying to identify the right person to reach out to there. We're calling, we're not getting answers because they're so short-staffed, whatever it is. We found Rotary to be huge in connecting those dots. Because yes,
and see if there's a Rotarian there
yes,
that can make that introduction.
yes. So we'll reach out, and we're in the process of that right now with another one where we reach out and say, hey, but we don't know anyone in this clinic. We don't have a good contact. Rotary knows everyone. Who do you know that can help us, get introduction, kind of vouch for us too, that, who we say we are, what we're doing. And we've had some huge success in that. And even we found, like, when hospital systems need to be involved, that to provide some additional support to the clinics to make all this happen. Rotary has been a huge driving force there, leveraging their network, and then just like bringing all the pieces together and making it happen. The next part is, as I mentioned earlier, on the funding aspect of it. We've been exploring different funding models. We don't want to have to rely on Rotary year over year for the same clinics. And so we want to identify, as these clinics get up and running, and it's a proven model in that community, and they see, wow, this is having an impact. We want Rotary to help connect us with local foundations and corporations and individuals who would be interested in coming on board alongside us to carry the ball and support financially, and to continue to have that impact in their community.
Great. And I know one thing that's very near and dear to my part is the hygiene kit packs that we have here at MAP. We just had a very successful Saturday packing 2,000 hygiene kits that went to Ukraine. And I don't know how many washcloths we rolled, but we started out with 20,000 that needed to be rolled. But the really beautiful thing about Saturday was because we had 8 clubs that were represented. And so, if you are, within, driving distance, come on down to MAP. If there's enough people they would be willing to open on a Saturday, but that's unusual. They're usually you're open from Monday through Friday, and they have packs all during the week. But do consider that. And I've been asked the question, well, we can't travel to you. Is there any way that we can still participate in a pack?
Yes, and I'll back up one step to say, yeah, our volunteer coordinator, CG Rosser, she gets excited anytime she hears from Rotary and loves to hear you guys, especially new clubs. So
Awesome
yes,
to work
and she keeps a very busy schedule, especially right now, as I was mentioning, we're responding to Ukraine and surrounding countries, and so there's a big demand for hygiene kits for the people that have been displaced. And CG is doing a great job of kind of corralling all of our local volunteers and Rotary clubs and churches and schools and all that, and bringing them in and packing those kits. That is by appointment, so we always like to make that clear that don't just show up to MAP and say, "Hey, I'm here to help." But definitely reach out to CG Rosser here, or you can go to our website, map.org, and find more information about our volunteer events.
And you can always call me.
You can call Beverly as well. It's even you have her phone number now. I gave it to you on the screen earlier, so feel free to text her anytime. And but no, the other thing that does come up often is offsite packing events. And I was mentioned to some of the Rotarians this past weekend, we cannot do medicine packing events offsite for regulatory, kind of the obvious reasons, but we can bring the hygiene kit packing events offsite, and that's always a big hit. We set it up assembly line, and people ask me, well, I only have 10 people. We just want to do our minimum for offsite, I think, is 250 kits. So that's not a problem. They say, well, we have 200 people. That's not a problem. It's scalable. So we just continue to set up the same thing, and as much space as you have, as much people as you have, we can work that out. We have an event or two events coming up in a couple of weeks. One with 2,000 packs. It'll be at a school, and then the next one with 5,000 packs, which will be with a corporation. So, we have another one this weekend. It's 250 packs. So 250, 5,000, whatever the need is there for the kits, and we're definitely willing to come out and do that with you.
Great. And I know that you will always accept cash donations because not all of the medicines are donated, correct?
Correct. So yes, as we're talking about specifically with this program, with the Saving Lives of Medicine program, we use that to offset what's not donated and to make sure that we have a consistent supply of those medications that are needed. And I always like to use the example of metformin. It's a well-known drug for chronic disease. And sometimes we'll get a donation of, I've seen them 100, 150,000 bottles, which is, it's going to have a huge impact. That all gets shipped out around the world, and we don't see that same donation for another 6 months. So yes, the funding, and then also we have overhead. We have the lights, the facility cost, staffing cost, shipping cost, all of that. So the funds go a long ways.
And so to recap, we have on-site, off-site hygiene packing kits that need to be done. We have identifying charitable and free clinics in your area. We've got outright donations and help in identifying strategic partners that MAP can work with so that this program is sustainable long-term, because we are looking to grow and to grow the number of clinics that we are serving. Are there any last thoughts, words? Steve?
Well, thank you. I really thank the leadership of Rotary International. And again, it takes just an idea and then a plan. How do you mobilize the team, test it? And it just shows you the power of the Rotarians here, right locally around the world. I just want to say thank you very much. It is such a privilege and honor to be part of this great organization. Jason, by the way, is a honorary Rotarian as well, and I'm a Rotarian as well, and such a great group of people having so much fun together. And we'll have a party to celebrate your birthday, Beverly, soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and you all have a blessed day.